Each morning of these 333 excruciating mornings, Israelis wake up for and to the morning news. There is a collective holding of breath as the nation waits for two words. And if, as far too often, the announcer says these two words, a nation bows its head in sorrow. Hutar lefirsum, it is cleared for publication. Hutar lefirsum means that the family has been notified by the army in the best case, or sometimes by WhatsApp or a call from a friend. Hutar lefirsum, another life or soul or world has been destroyed. And so before I share a few words about Eden Yerushalmi, I want to offer as an intention these words by Israeli poet Dael Rodriguez Garcia, written soon after October 7th. Hutar lefirsum. Hutar lefirsum ki libenu nishbar, uvamistarim b'chadarim rekim, revavot yevavot, nechnakot bli kol. Cleared for publication, that our hearts are broken and in hidden places. In empty rooms, thousands of sobs are choking silently. Cleared for publication that open season was declared on us. We were plundered in the dark of the most precious of the precious. It is already cleared for publication that the magical shining light of our beloved's face is extinguished. However, beneath the same soil, a stubborn plant is sprouting, sending roots without end, tightly grasped with love. We read in the book of Genesis, Vayita Adonai Elohim gan be'Eden mikedem. God, Adonai, planted a garden in Eden in the east. Eden, you then are the start of our shared humanity. And in your youth, your beauty, your smile, you brought the world together in hope and now in despair. To your family, your parents Naor and Shirit, your beloved sisters Shani and May, you were the foreign affairs ambassador of the family, the sandwich sister, meeting everyone with nothing less than kindness. A girl full of joy. Your sisters promised yesterday to keep the house lively and full of happiness the way you always did. They said you were a friend, always bursting with energy. I couldn't help but think that you died amidst the summer days that you loved so, in darkness. But we hope, that even in those moments, maybe especially in those moments, you imagined yourself by your beloved beach, surrounded by laughter and the enduring sound of matkot, which you also loved. Someone wrote of you, Eden, that you were a child of the land, born by the sea and a lover of yoga. She wrote that you were just 24 years old, just starting your journey to who you were meant to be. That journey ended in a tunnel in Gaza, but we hope you know you were never alone. Your family, your fellow Israelis, Jews the world over, each and every one of us tried to fulfill your last words on October 7th. You said, "Find me, okay?" And we found you too late for this world. Your mother's birthday wish on Friday that she would meet you and that you would return. She said, "But not like this." But I'm holding that our mystics, the rabbis of the Zohar, believed that Gan Eden became the dwelling place of holy souls, the purest and best parts of us as we depart this world. As we say in the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim, we say, Began Eden tehei menuchata. Let her rest be in the Garden of Eden. Eden, may you rest now, your beloved sea rocking you to sleep, the love of your family holding you close, forever lost, but forever found.
Just 8 weeks ago, I went to Hostages Square in Tel Aviv with a small group of rabbinic colleagues to meet a young woman by the name of Maya Roman. She wanted to tell us about her cousin, a young woman named Carmel Gat, an occupational therapist from Tel Aviv, who was visiting her parents on Kibbutz Be'eri on the morning of October 7th. Carmel's mother, Kinneret, was murdered that morning. And Carmel was taken captive along with her brother, Alon, her sister-in-law, Yarden, and her 3-year-old niece, Geffen. Incredibly, Alon and Geffen managed to escape before they were taken into Gaza. But Carmel and her sister-in-law were not so fortunate. In November, however, the family rejoiced as Yarden returned home in the ceasefire deal, but Carmel remained. Maya told us that the release of the hostages in late November brought reports that revealed so much about her beloved Carmel's extraordinary strength and soulfulness. Eyewitnesses confirmed that she remained alive, despite the grave conditions under which she was being held. There had been others, including children, imprisoned with her, and Carmel taught them all how to practice yoga and how to meditate, leading them in practice every day, even counseling them to journal, breathing into them the determination and the spiritual tools needed to survive. And they did survive. When the ceasefire deal was finalized, they headed home to describe their guardian angel, Carmel, who upon their departure had been left alone. Carmel had been their life-giving light. Her entire legacy is one of life-giving light. Her loved ones said that Carmel gave the best hugs in the world, that she hugged so tightly you can feel all the love in the world in her embrace. She had been scheduled in October to begin studies for her master's degree at Hebrew University. Said her brothers at her funeral, "We miss your zest for life, how you loved to order many different foods and taste them all, how you loved to have fun, but go to sleep early after giving your all. You fought for justice, social equality, and helping all. You will live with us now, at every moment." Throughout these past 8 weeks, I have constantly wondered if Carmel was still alive, if she was still alone, if the sustenance she had gifted to others had also managed to sustain her. And it turned out she was alive, and it did sustain her. Her strength and spirit proved mightier than 11 months of brutal captivity. And it will be her strength and her spirit that we will summon in learning how to weather the cruelty of her loss. Yehi zichra baruch. May her memory be a blessing. Yehi zichra mapecha. May her memory be a revolution.
Alexander Lobanov lived in Ashkelon, in southern Israel. He was working at the Nova Festival, managing all the bars. When Hamas attacked, there are testimonies that Alexander helped people to evacuate, and then he ran into the forest. It was there that he was kidnapped. He was a nature lover who loved the sea and a Jeep tour enthusiast who volunteered for the Yedidim Association. That's an association that mentors children. Alex met Michal 10 years ago. He was a chef in a restaurant in Ashkelon, and she was a waitress. They were married and have a 2-year-old son, Tom. When Alexander was taken hostage, Michal was pregnant. His second child was born while he was held captive. His name is Kai. Michal took constant pictures of him so that she could show his growth to her husband. I read part of a column that Michal wrote in Israel Hayom, it's a publication, about 6 months ago. It reads, in part, Alex was kidnapped from the party in Re'im after working there as a bar manager. He went there to provide for our family, left home, and didn't return. Tom, our eldest son, is only 2.5 years old. It's hard to explain to a child that age where Dad disappeared to, because he really doesn't understand yet. He looks for him at home. He points at a picture or runs to his Jeep. And she concludes the piece, the boys and I are waiting for you at home and praying every moment. Alex was an Israeli citizen who also had Russian citizenship, and his parents are Oksana and Gregory. He was 32 years old. The Times of Israel reported that at his funeral on Sunday evening in Ashkelon, there were thousands in attendance. At the funeral, Michal said through tears, I want to focus on your love of others, your love of life and freedom, a freedom that was taken from you on October 7th by those despicable people. Please come to me in my dreams. Send me signs. Rest, my sweetheart. Now you can rest. You left here many people who love you. Please send me strength. I will be yours forever and ever until we meet again. Zichrono livracha, may his memory be a blessing, and may God cradle his soul in a loving embrace for eternity.
The Nova Music Festival was a trance festival. Those who gathered from all over Israel came to sing and dance and be enthralled by the beat of the massive speakers that filled the nature preserve. When we drove there this past May, our spirits were quite different from those young Israelis who drove there. We were making a pilgrimage to a place that was now hallowed ground, a pilgrimage to a killing field. And as we walked among the shrines to each of those murdered victims, we witnessed not just their faces, but the stories and images and poems and pictures their families left. Almog Sarusi was there. He was there to dance and to be enthralled by the music. He was a 27-year-old native of Ra'anana. He's described by the Hostage Family Forum as a vibrant person. Full of life, he loved traveling around Israel in his white Jeep with his guitar. If you've been to Israel, you know his type. Barefoot, dirty jeans cut off, a torn shirt, a campfire guitar, hiking, barefoot, probably. Almog was dancing at the Nova Festival with his longtime girlfriend, Shachar Gindi. She was a psychology student at REL. He attempted to protect her. Shachar's body was later found at the site of the festival. There is a shrine to her at the sacred ground now. They were present the moment the music stood still. Almog is the son of Yigal and Nira and the brother of Amit, who all worked tirelessly to gain his release. His family was notified twice in the past 11 months that their son's body was found. But it was ultimately revealed both times that it was, in fact, not his. This time, tragically, the news was accurate. In Almog's memory, and on behalf of all those who were murdered at the hands of Hamas terrorists, we embrace the vision affirmed by those who created the Nova Dance Festival Remembrance exhibition. When you walk through there, you're struck by the brutality of the attack and the suffering of the victims, but you also get glimpses of the dancing, of the music, of the festivities that were stopped in mid-note by the attack. When you walk through the exhibit, you end by seeing the words on the wall, "We will dance again." And so in Almog's memory and the memory of all those victims of the Nova Music Festival, we say here today, we will dance again.
Our tradition teaches that anyone who saves a life, it's as if they have saved an entire world. When Hamas terrorists attacked the Nova Festival on October 7th, 25-year-old Ori Danino filled his car with as many people as possible to drive them to safety. And he succeeded, saving the lives of everyone with him. They were out of harm's way, and so was he. But once he realized that the friends he'd met earlier that day at the festival remained in danger, Ori didn't think twice. He turned his car around and he went back, trying to rescue them as well. But he was captured, and instead of celebrating his wedding to his fiancée Liel, his family buried him 2 days ago at Har Herzl, the National Cemetery for Israel's fallen soldiers. A master sergeant in San Chanim, an airborne battalion, Ori had dedicated himself to the safety of others. His younger brothers recounted that he always made sure that they felt safe, that he would always be there to protect them and to help them.
But Ori wasn't just a hero. He wasn't just a protector. He was a devoted son, a caring brother, a loving fiancé. His brother Aaron tenderly recalled how Ori drove 3 hours from his basic training facility just to give him a hug when Aaron had problems adjusting to his new middle school. And his fiancée Liel remembered him as the best partner you could ever imagine. He was a young man, one who brought smiles to the faces of his families and friends, one with hopes and dreams, one whose life was just beginning. And though his life has now ended, his choice to turn back, to prioritize others' safety at the risk of his own, reminds us all not just who he was, but who we too ought to be. Ori Danino died trying to save lives, reminding us all just how precious life should be. Zichrono livracha. May his memory remain a blessing to us all.
Just a few days after October 7th, I saw for the first time a post on my social media feed with his photo and a hashtag, Bring Hersh Home. But it took me almost a week to make the connection. It was the middle of the night, and we weren't sleeping well, worried sick about loved ones and friends. I was half asleep when my wife cried out, "That's our Rachel. That's our Rachel." She showed me an article in the New York Times. It was October 12th, 2023. The byline was Rachel Goldberg, and she was writing about her son, Hersh. We realized at that moment what we should have figured out much more quickly. How many Hershes did we know? But this one and his family, we did. My wife ran to our living room and grabbed the photo album from our daughter's bat mitzvah. She flipped through it frantically and then pointed to the photo of a 12-year-old boy in a red sweatshirt with glasses on and said, "That's Hersh." 13 years ago, soon after we had moved to Jerusalem, my wife came home one afternoon and told me she'd made a new friend that day. Her name was Rachel, and she and her husband, John, as happens when you live in a place like Jerusalem, invited us to Shabbat dinner along with our entire family. The amazing, loving, beautiful family that the world, for the most tragic of reasons, has come to know is exactly as you would expect. Loving, devoted, sweet, compassionate, funny, gracious, strong. Hersh, as we've probably all come to know, was a special, special soul. He was kind and giving. He loved music and music festivals. He loved to travel. He was a great, great friend. He was thoughtful and generous. He was a pure soul. This is what his mother wrote about him in that New York Times piece published 328 days ago. 10 years ago, Rachel wrote then, we were preparing to celebrate the bar mitzvah of our son Hersh. His Torah portion was the same as the one Jews around the world will read in the coming days, the story of Noah and how God destroyed much of the world with a terrible flood. But Hersh's attention was not on destruction. Instead, he focused on how water could save the world. So he swam laps to raise money for an organization that digs wells in Africa to provide clean, life-saving water. This is the kind of person Hersh, our oldest child and only son, is. Gentle and kind and always finding creative ways to improve things and connect with other human beings. Later in her piece, Rachel wrote, I don't know if he's dead or alive or if I'll ever see him again. The only thing I know is that this is not the fate that Hersh or any of the other captives, among whom are several other Americans, deserves. We came to learn that Hersh was alive. The terrorists who stole him from his family forced him to appear in a video that was released back in April. But Rachel and John and his sisters Libby and Orly never got to see him again. They never got to hold their son, their brother. They never got to say goodbye. I hope that somehow Hersh knew how hard his family and friends and all of us all over the world tried. I hope he knew how desperately we wanted to bring him home. I've been thinking a lot about an image that Rachel used in the piece she wrote when she could not have possibly imagined what the next 328 days would mean for her and her family. Her trips around the world, her address to the United Nations and at the DNC just 2 weeks ago, She and John couldn't have known what the universe had in store for them then, the hard things they would have to endure with a dignity and grace that is simply beyond comprehension. Rachel wrote this 5 days after Hersh was kidnapped, referencing the story of the flood that he read about in his bar mitzvah parsha. She wrote, "Hersh is my whole world. And this evil is the flood that is destroying it. I really don't know if anything can save it. If anyone knows, please tell me. To save a life, our sages taught, is to save a world. Please help me save my son. It will save my world." She continued, "Every single person in Gaza has a mother or had a mother at some point. And I would say this then as a mother to other mothers, if you see Hersh, please help him. I think about it a lot. I really think I would help your son if he was in front of me, injured, near me." So here's what we have to do with all of our heartbreak, with all of our sorrow and frustration, all of our anger and our rage. We have to remember the beautiful, precious, kind, and generous soul whose absence causes such sorrow. Hersh's soul is like that of his mother and father, kind and loving, gracious and pure. This past Sunday, I was about to perform a wedding, and I was wondering, how do you begin a wedding in the wake of such news? And 5 hours before the ceremony, I got a text from a friend in Jerusalem who was also at a wedding. He said, "You won't believe it. I'm at a wedding with some of our mutual friends. And Hersh and his family were supposed to be here in another world. And John, whose son had just been murdered, reached out that morning to the family of the groom to wish them mazel tov and to tell them that he wanted them to celebrate with full hearts, that that's what Hersh would have wanted as well." That's a pure soul. We've come to know this family, and when 328 days after she published that article, we read those words of Rachel's, words directed at the captors and their enablers who could have saved his life. When we hear her say, "I really think I would help your son if he was in front of me, injured, near me," we know it's true because we've come to know who she is. She would help a stranger's child who was in pain. So to honor Hersh Goldberg Poland, let's find the strength, as impossibly hard as it seems right now, to flood this world with kindness, with compassion, and with love. That won't be easy to do. Not with the feelings we are holding right now, not with the frustration and the exhaustion and the anger. But that's what we need to do. And so tonight, let me suggest that we start with one another. Those of you in this room, those of you joining us online. Let's be so kind to each other. Let's be so compassionate with one another. And let's send that love and compassion and our prayers for strength and healing to the families of our Aiden and Carmel, our Alex and Almog and Ori and Hersh. Let's flood the world with righteousness and compassion. Let's drown in the togetherness of goodness. It might not feel like we have it in us, like it's in our nature, but of this I am certain. It's exactly what Hersh would do. Yehi Zichro Baruch. His memory is a blessing.